Sometimes when a game series gets well known for having excellent soundtracks, they branch the rhythm action spin-off game. Final Fantasy Theatre of the Rhythm has basically become its own series, and I absolutely adore those games. Persona Dancing All Night had a good example of it, and they often try something slightly different because they aren't traditional rhythm action games. And the latest game series to try this is Azure Striker Gunvolt. In these games, there are songstresses that appear as characters in that series, and they now decide to take on the vocals of various different theme songs that are either originals or arranges of some of the battle themes or main themes of that series. The game comes with 15 songs to begin with, and is priced at a low price point to try and get you in. But this felt slightly scummy to me when immediately on week 2, DLC packs started dropping for about 89p per song in a pack, which isn't too bad from a price point perspective, but immediately made me feel like I'd already paid for a game that now feels like it's incomplete, and I felt a little bit grubby. I'm not a fan of DLC immediately dropping straight away. I feel like that just shows that it could have been in the game, and you could have either priced it appropriately or made the game more value conscious, I guess. But anyway, that aside, there's some other weird things with this game too. You pick one of those songstresses to be your character that you think you're going to be taking into these rhythm action levels, but they only appear in the menu, and that's it. And then once you complete a song, they pop up and go, hey, great job, with whatever line of dialogue that particular character has. But they're absent from, or your choice is totally absent from the rest of the game. And that's because the videos that play in the levels in the background are pre-recorded with no kind of swap outs. So unlike, say, if I reference the Project Diva series, if you do something wrong or if you change the character's, Miku or any of the other Vocaloids' costumes, that appears in the level. Nothing changes here whatsoever. It's all pre-recorded, which is fine, but it kind of then begs the question, why have you tried to make this a thing that, look at all these songstresses? It doesn't matter. When you get into the game though, here's where my main kind of criticisms start to come in from Gunvolt RECORDS Cychronicle. And I have to preface this with, I did enjoy the game, but there are some fundamental things that are lacking that tempered my enjoyment, so that this has become a short and shrift experience for me rather than something I can see myself investing hours and hours and hours and hours and hours into, like lots of rhythm action games that I personally do. Gunvolt RECORDS Cychronicle looks like it's going to be a 4-lane rhythm action game, but it's really only 2. And that's because the left 2 lanes and the right 2 lanes are controlled by the same buttons on your controller or keyboard. And it doesn't matter if it's like a note coming down one of those 2 lanes or across both, you just press the same buttons anyway. And quite often it's like machiney to the beat. So as it goes doing a thumper, 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 you're kind of going boink, 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 boink. That's part 1, and it takes a little while for your head to be like, oh, it doesn't really matter, but you get over that quite quickly. The other thing is that you've got these arrow analog stick strikes to flick out in each direction, which feels fine. And then you've got these arcs that remind me heavily of Super Beat Sonic, or a non-VR version of Airtone, if you've played that. You flick the analog stick to where the arc is going to start, you'll hold it there for a little bit, and then you'll slowly twist it around depending on the speed of the arc. The problem is that there's no visual cues for how fast the arc goes initially though, so sometimes you'll lose your combo just because you're playing the game for the first time and you're not sure how speedy something's going to flip around. As you go through the 4 difficulties of each of these 15 songs though, you start to notice that Gunvolt RECORDS Cychronicle is only happy and satisfied if you're pressing a button at any one time. So that's where the flow of these songs come in. Early on you've got more gaps between pressing a button. As you go up the difficulties, what you'll find is that there'll be lots of press and holds and releases to the other side of the notes. So you'll kind of be like flicking, 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 flicking. And then you'll be doing the same with the arcs too. So you start to be able to guesstimate better how quick an arc is going to be. But the arcs quite often are held for a long period of time, and it slows down the flow and rhythm of a rhythm action game. And so it's as if you're like speeding along quite merrily, matching the rhythm element, and the charts feel like they do relate to the song structure, be that the percussion, the main vocal, or the guitar solo, maybe some keyboard stabs, something like that. It does feel like it mirrors and matches quite nicely. But then these arcs don't. And they get held for quite a long period of time. So it's as if you're jauntily running along and then you're like, no, pause a little bit. And it takes you out of the experience. And where this becomes difficult is in the left brain, right brain mentality, because quite often on the very hard difficulties, you'll be pressing and holding an arc whilst also hitting buttons behind yourself. So you're doing like 2, 3, potentially 4 things at once. And two of them will be in tune to the music and the other 2 will be doing something more overarching, like a full bar of music. And I can see some rhythm action experts quite enjoying that potentially. I found it slightly not confusing because I knew what I was needing to do, but it didn't all join up nicely from a flow experience. And it's me being super, super nitpicky, because I think some other people will still get like some really good enjoyment out of this. But the longer I played this, the more I zoned into this very specific problem and it started to grate. And that's probably why I'm not really going to be picking up those DLC packs anytime soon, because the 15 songs in the game gave me more than enough of a taste of this game to kind of go, yep, enjoyable in small doses, but I'm not going to be spending hours and hours of my time trying to perfect anything. There is like a movie only mode so that you can watch some of the background images. Some of them are nicely done where they're pretending to like sing and dance the songs in concert. Other ones are cool background montages of actual in-game footage. I did find that sometimes the background in-game footage were quite bright and peaky and would get in the way of me being able to see some of the notes coming down as well, so that felt like there could be much more options available for contrast so that you could make the notes stand out more. But yeah, this was fine. It's not the top tier of rhythm action games. So as a fan of the genre, I of course bought it and will still get some enjoyment out of it. I think it's a bit more of a tougher sell unless you're a fan of the Gunvolt series and quite fancy a rhythm action game that tries to do something a little bit different, but doesn't quite pull it off in the way that Super Beat Sonic does from this arc perspective, or showcasing the best songs in the series like your Final Fantasy Theatre rhythms and your Personas do.
Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/Higher Network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.